So, hi everybody who's watching, and welcome to this Red Meets Blue short introduction to Blue Health when it comes to discussing Blue Health with our Red ambassadors. So we're really lucky today in that we have Stuart, Sarah and Goran joining us as ambassadors, and we've got Rachel, Robin and Charlie from Team Red, and myself, Lizzie, from Going Coastal Blue. We thought we were having a chat, Robin, Charlie and I, about how we can most inspire you to make the most of your Blue Health experiences, and we thought what better way than to hear from some of our ambassadors in terms of their stories about the impact that stand-up paddling has had on their Blue Health. So we're going to get them to introduce themselves briefly in case you don't know them already, and then really touch on some questions around the psychological, social, physical and even the spiritual benefits that they've seen from paddling. So do you want to introduce yourself? It's going to be free flow. It's going to be about a half an hour chat and opportunity for you maybe to connect with these guys after this webinar if there's questions that arise for you. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves and just share what is your water? So where are you in the world? Because I know that you're not all in the UK. And for you, what is the water that really fires you up? In any order.
I can start then. I'm Goran Gustafsson. I'm from Sweden, but right now I'm on top of the world in Yukon in Canada. I've just done the Yukon River Quest. Fantastic water up here to paddle in. I'm just stoked with all the water, but back home I paddle in rivers, ocean, lakes. So it's similar conditions where I'm from, but it's a lot bigger up here, and it's not much people, a lot of bears around.
Okay. Which is amazing in terms of, because that's something that would be really useful to explore as well at the end, our connection with wildlife and how that impacts our paddling experiences. So we might come back to that, to the bears. Thanks, Goran.
Cool. I'm Stu Croxford from 3012, and I'm based in south coast of Cornwall, down near St Austell. So my main water is ocean paddling at the moment. Love going sort of exploring estuaries and doing some more lake stuff as well. And as Goran said, thankfully there's no bears in Cornwall that I've seen, so a little bit safer. But yeah, so no, also I've been up to the Yukon, absolutely amazing, and love sort of river paddling as well.
Great. Massively appreciate all of you giving up your time to share.
I am Sarah. I'm also known as Plus Size Paddler on social media. I am based in Dorset, so I'm also a sea paddler. And yeah, mostly the sea, but a few lakes as well.
Okay. So different paddling conditions and different locations. So okay, so if we start with, I guess we could start with psychological benefits, because that really feeds into this idea of blue mind, so this distributed mind that we have, but the psychological benefits that you might have seen in terms of Blue Health of spending time on your stand-up paddleboard, or even in the water coming off your stand-up paddleboard. And that refers really to cognition, so making sense of the world, how your experiences might have impacted your cognition, but also the emotional benefits that you have seen from experiencing stand-up paddling. So are there any stories that you think come to mind that you'd like to share that you feel would be inspiring for others to hear in terms of cognition and emotion?
I find paddleboarding a really effective way of helping me manage my anxiety. And a lot of my anxiety is like rooted in grief of losing my mum when I was younger. And actually, like when my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour, just being able to paddle, it just slows it all down and almost gives me time to process it, like life and everything that's going on. And it's probably the most effective way that I've found to do that. Like movement's always been helpful, but there's something special about paddleboarding for me that sets it apart.
Have you managed to distill what it is that happens for you psychologically when you're on your paddleboard?
I think it's a combination of things. I think like the actual movement of paddleboarding is very repetitive, so you don't have to think about it. It's just like one stroke after another. So I think that's a big part of it. But also for me, the sea is like my home. Like I grew up around it. Like all of my childhood was around the beach, and I think that element of it, instantly the water is calming for me. I think that's where it gives it that edge for me.
And it's interesting that you refer to the movement, because it's really difficult to separate the Blue Health elements into just the psychological and then the physical, then the spiritual, then the environmental and social. So you've already touched on the fact that the physical element of it does impact, and also those ideas of anchoring and nostalgia. So those memories that we have and that sense of place that we have when we're out on the water. So that's that. And there's a lot of people within our Blue Health Red Meets Blue community who are sharing that they stand up paddle as part of working through emotions. So that's a really good example. What about you guys, Goran and Stuart?
For me, is I'm an office worker, 9 to 5, bank, and it's a way to get out, to get the fresh air going, get my mind on something else, and it's like you said, this one stroke at a time, and you start to think about other stuff as well. What I like, because I travel between offices in my bank, and I can always bring my board with me. So if I have a sleepover at a new place, I always explore a new place, get my mind away from the banking, and get a mind away from everything else that bothers you in the world. You just by yourself a little bit. And I like cross-country skiing, obviously, because I'm from Sweden, and because of the greenhouse effects, we don't get much snow where I live in Sweden anymore. So I find a way to stand up paddle is pretty much the same muscle groups and movement as cross-country skiing. And another stuff is really, because I've been a swimmer, and you always hurt yourself if you go running or if you do stuff like that, and in a way I never hurt myself when I've been stand-up paddling, even when I have done 750 kilometers paddling now just recently. It's really hard to injure yourself. So the muscle groups that you're working with is really good for your health.
So again, a lot of shift into the physical benefits as well as those emotional benefits. So you touched on this, you can take your paddleboard anywhere, and that to me is kind of evocative of somebody taking their yoga mat somewhere, and when you get on the mat, that's your space. Likewise, you can take your stand-up paddleboard with you and go exploring. So it's that external awareness as well as internal, and certainly there's the physicality of the breath and movement and those muscle groups that you've referred to. Yeah, definitely good remedy for a chaotic world.
Yeah.
What about you, Stuart, in terms of psychological benefits that you've seen?
Yeah, for me, it's hugely about sort of slowing that pace down. I find that I'm quite I enjoy a lot of adrenaline and like a fast pace in life. So I think for me, it's an opportunity to sort of slow down, to really sort of shrink my world, and sort of be a bit more present. So I sort of take that opportunity to sort of be humbled by the ocean, and sort of really sort of distract from everything else going on in life and all the chaos and all the data and information we get pumped with in sort of modern living and things. So for me is getting out on the water and just sort of allowing my brain to sort of slow down and sort of really sort of just think about what I'm doing in the present, and just having that sort of time off and sort of challenging myself as well. I actually find I'm a lot more productive when I come back off the water and I sort of re-engage into sort of projects or things that I'm sort of developing and stuff like that, that my brain is sort of a little bit fresher. So for me, it's a little bit of a reset, I think. I definitely enjoy that. Really good. And that's so links into the cognitive benefits of stand-up paddling and spending time by water, full stop. That slowing down. The reset is the classic statement that gets given, a chance to switch off, dial out of the busyness of the mind, and then come back fresher with a fresh perspective. So and that gets referred to quite a lot, this slowing down, slowing everything down, going into that much more parasympathetic place in terms of our nervous system, rather than that frenetic, from a blue mind perspective, we'd refer to that as red mind, but we know that red in this context is great. red mind, a little bit less so. So yeah, that's really good examples. So and you also talked about being humbled. So being humbled kind of leads us, that's more into almost the spiritual element of connecting with nature and perspective.
getting a sense of perspective. But because we kind of led a little bit into the physical side of things with all three of you actually to a certain extent, what else do you notice then from a Blue Health point of view happens for you physically that you'd either attribute to stand-up paddling more specifically, or the water element of the fact that water is present? What do you notice for you are the benefits physically? Because we've asked some questions in our questionnaire around physicality, and actually you mentioned, Stuart, around this being present in the moment. We've asked some questions around ability to your temporal awareness, about being here and now. But physically, what else have you noticed from stand-up paddling?
So for me, physically, the reason I got into stand-up paddling was I lost my leg after serving with the British Army 2014. And I was sort of in a long-term rehabilitation program to start walking again using a prosthetic leg. And a friend said to me, come down and try it at a lake. And I was always keen to just give new things a go. I'd lost some things that I previously enjoyed doing. So I was all about actually sort of refinding where I was in my life and finding new things that I could potentially do. And falling off a paddleboard into water was hopefully going to be less sort of dangerous, and my consultant and physiotherapist would be less worried about me doing it. So gave it a go and sort of fell in love, and fell in the water a lot at the start. And but for me, it was that help with my rehabilitation and proprioception and my strength and balance, and so everything I've got to sort of manage when I'm walking around on a prosthetic and sort of dealing with disability I've got to live with for the rest of my life, but making sure that that didn't define who I was. And actually I was able to really sort of strengthen my ability as an amputee and actually start challenging what I could do was hugely important. And it just became more important in my rehab. So I started challenging myself more and more, and sort of did my instructor training, because I wanted to make sure that I could help other people as well sort of experience that on a physical and mental side of sort of rehabilitation from challenging situations that we all sort of end up in or go through, or sort of stumbling blocks in our life as well. So for me, it was the physical side of it was huge in my part of my life, and it's stayed on and will be a part of my life forever.
And really, really relevant. And in terms of, it's falling into the water off a paddleboard is accessible to most people. So, stage one. So that's and in terms of the level of connection with the vestibular system, in terms of your training in terms of your recovery, so the subtlety and the nuance when it comes to stand-up paddling is very different from something else that might get manufactured on a land-based environment. So the water, I think, has huge impact there. Huge impact there. In terms of it feeling safe to fall into the water, it'll catch you.
Yeah.
And you've referred to the fact that proprioceptively where your limbs are, where your body is, that awareness and that sense of connection and alignment is so linked to our mental health. So we know that you can't feel miserable if you're skipping around. Your body doesn't associate those two things. And likewise, when you're on the paddleboard, you're processing your emotions in a very, very different way, because your body's doing different things that it wouldn't necessarily ordinarily do. So that's a really cool example. What about Gorans and Sarah? Anything else? Gorans, you mentioned physicality already, but is there anything more around the physical impact of paddling for you or Sarah?
No, I don't have anything more. I think it's just that like again, it's really, I find it really hard to hurt yourself. You can more or less paddle quite a lot without injuring yourself. It's just to put one stroke at a time, and you can change your rhythm and all that, and the muscle group just works all the time. I was working, like I said, in an office, and a little bit of back problem, and that sort of stuff when you get when you're 6'2", and so I don't have any more back problems, that sort of stuff. You're working in your small little muscle groups, and down it all the way from your toes up to your neck. So it's quite impressive. Like actually, when I say to people in Sweden, well, like when they have a bad knee, they're complaining about my bad knees and all that, and I say, oh, you should start to go paddleboarding, because I think you strengthen your muscles around knees and that, and they do a lot of marathon running and they hurt themselves and they're injured, and then I said, yeah, you should try stand-up paddleboarding, because I think it's going to help your recovery from that sort of things.
And I think that's you've got something you've got in common with Stuart, is that inviting other people into that space, so encouraging other people. It sounds like Sarah as well. That's really relevant. How do you encourage other people to gain that strength, that all-encompassing strength that is so fully embodied from the tips of your toes right the way up the body? And there's something around endurance as well. I think when you're out in nature, endurance is easier because you've got things to fascinate you, you've got things to take your attention, which is slightly different than if you were training in the gym.
Oh yeah. I'll never go to gym. This is my gym. That's the board and the paddle. And we have an endurance race, a ski race, really famous ski race, 90 kilometers cross country ski race in Sweden, and I've done a couple of times, and last time I did it, I didn't spend any time on my skis before the race. The only thing I did was stand-up paddling, because it's more or less the same muscle groups. So that's another thing that I try to encourage people that like cross-country skiing, because similar people, because they like to go out in the nature to cross-country, and if you do stand-up paddling instead in a lake or in a river, it's more or less the same thing.
For sure. Thank you.
For me, it was quite different. Like, so my relationship with exercise was really poor before I started paddleboarding. It was very much linked to like which diet I was on as to what I did. And although I loved running, I've got quite severe asthma, and running at certain times of the year, like when it's cold or the hay fever's high, it's just not something that was possible. And with paddleboarding, it kind of made me change the way I thought about exercise. So it was more for me, it wasn't for any other reason. And actually, like, the way that it can make you feel strong and capable because of like all those muscle groups you're using and those adventures you can go on doing a paddleboard, I think it's quite unique. Especially on the coast, you get to see parts of the coast that you can't see by foot and from a different perspective. And I think that element like really adds to, the movement. And makes it extra special.
And I think when you said about you described yourself as also known as the plus size paddler, I think there's an accessibility that comes with stand-up paddling, certainly that can encourage people, whatever their body image, to come and have a go, to come and play, and it's that you gently start to get stronger and stronger, which is much less harsh on the body than suddenly going into some big training program. And laughter is such a huge part of falling off your board and laughing about it, and the breath that comes with that, shifting your breath. You said having asthma. Some of the health questions that we've asked within the questionnaire around the Red Meets Blue is around the breathing and our heart rhythm and sleep. So all of those elements, I bet all of you notice that you sleep really well when you're paddling. It's part of breathing well. It's part of moving and feeling that you've had an active day. Yeah, and seeing the areas of the coast or areas that you might not have seen, that curiosity that comes to mind, which keeps your brain alive. So you start to make links into the cognition side of things. So they're really cool examples. So if we were to bring spiritual and social together, so that sense of connection with other people, or sense of connection with some transcendent moments. I mean, I know, watching a sunset can be quite something when you stand at paddleboard, or seeing bears, I would imagine, is a pretty life affirming moment. And what have you got in terms of connection that you might have had with wildlife or nature that's been quite transcendent, or connection with other people? How has it impacted your social connections, your stand-up paddling? Because they're really key elements of Blue Health.
For me, the community was like one of the biggest things that I fell in love with. Like, there's just such an awesome group of women, especially around where I am. And we're all like each other's cheerleaders, and it was like, it's so great. We're all doing completely different things within paddleboarding, but actually just like being able to come together and share that, I think is really special. And I think the way that it is so accessible, so you can have so many different kind of like levels paddling together and sharing the same experience. I think that makes it makes those connections you build even more deep, I guess, because you have conversations like you're going next to each other, so you're not looking at each other, so you might be having conversations about things that you wouldn't necessarily feel as comfortable if you're looking someone in the eye. And I think that's quite an interesting element of it.
Certainly that rings true from Blue Health coaching, certainly that being with somebody rather than interviewing them as such. So that's, and do you paddle alone at all? Because that connection can also be with nature and with a broader sense of being part of something bigger than you. Do you paddle alone as well?
I do paddle alone. I like to paddle at sunset. It's my favorite time. I think like it's like that one moment of the day. There's kind of two moments of the day, isn't there, with that sunrise where it's always beautiful. And as someone who doesn't like the morning, sunset is the go-to for me. And just being able to just kind of float there and watch it. I just think, it's just so beautiful, and it gives you that connection, I think, back to nature that I probably didn't appreciate before. And actually that's made me explore other areas that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise.
And nature connection in terms of Blue Health is, we know that it fosters empathy and compassion. We know that it fosters a curiosity about the interconnectedness of all things, which the fact that within the first 2 minutes, the word climate came up in our initial conversation. So climate, awareness of climate and the interrelation of all things comes from that sense of connection that we get when we spend time out in nature, and certainly out on the water or in the water. So that's really cool. What about you, Stuart?
It's quite funny though, because we all different people. I love the mornings. As I love the sunrise. So I most of the time I start a little bit before the sunrise, and I can catch the day. And I paddle back home. I do mostly paddling by myself because I do long distance paddling, and I just love to be out for at least an hour, 2 hours to paddling, and obviously because of the nature, to see different stuff. But then I'm a bit of a race. I wouldn't say I'm a race paddler, but I like a little bit of the racing side of it, and I always pick races that is I say always like is more than a race. Like I just done the Yukon River Quest, and that's a race in it itself, but it's more than a race, because you meet people from all over the world that loves paddling, loves to go a step further in life, and that's why I do say SUP 11 City as well. That's a little bit more than a race. It's a race in itself, but it's more than a race. You compete during the day, then you sleep and eat together on barges in Holland. And you meet people and talk to them and get the experience, and where have you been paddling, and I want to go to that place, and that sounds really nice, and where are you from, and that sort of stuff. So I always I never go to one-day races. I go always to find races there is more than a race. That's what I like, to just meet people from all over the world.
Giving you a very different neurochemical hit as well, isn't it? Because you get with a race that's a one day, you might get a bit of adrenaline going on there.
Yeah.
But the oxytocin bonding element of competing, but not competing to the detriment of other people. It's competing to be the best that you can be, and sharing those experiences with others that gives you that real sense of bonding and sense of connectedness. And it's interesting to actively choose to races that enable that sense of connection. Yeah, and it's inspiring and motivating, and that must have a ripple effect into the rest of your world, not just on the race day.
No, it's just you meet friends, and like now I wouldn't say I'm stuck in Canada, but I'm a little bit stuck. I had to stay here another week because of COVID, but I'm staying in a basement with one of a Canadian guy that we met here. So, and it's just incredible. And pretty much wherever I come to the world, I meet paddlers and that.
Yeah. It's a different level of sharing there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Stuart?
Yeah, for me, I love paddling sort of by myself as well. Sort of, I'm definitely more of a morning person. I love getting up, paddling in the calm of the ocean and on rivers and stuff, and just knowing that you sort of that reward and the hustle and bustle of everything else in life just hasn't woken up yet, and you can sort of really enjoy that. Even sort of night paddling I've done, say I've been up to Yukon River Quest as well, and I think the most calming sort of paddles I've been on are when it's during the night, and you've got the moon sort of lighting up and reflecting off the water, and sort of those moments, I mean, I've shared them with friends as well, but I also like the tranquility of sort of just absorbing that yourself, and you don't have to worry about anyone else's agendas and things like that. So I'm definitely one for doing exercise individually, and I'm a huge advocate for sort of the community side of it. I absolutely love being able to pull other people into sports they never thought they'd be able to achieve in, or have a go at, or be able to sort of experience. So I think that was my drive to be an instructor in paddleboarding, was being able to share what I loved about the sport, and being able to sort of see the smiles on their faces and the elation when they've stood up for the first time on an ocean, and they've been beating themselves up for an hour before on the beach saying, I won't be able to do it, I won't be able to do it. And for me, the buzz of that is huge when you take them out on the water and they actually start achieving and sort of smashing goals they never thought they'd do. So yeah, I love both of it. I love a bit of paddling by myself and absorbing the nature and the experience, and also the buzz around seeing what other people can do and their realization with it.
Amazing, and that's just, it's so inspiring to hear each of your stories. And I mean, a big part of the Red Blue research piece is around us sharing that inspiration and enabling people to really reflect on what is the health benefit that they're gaining from their stand-up paddle time, but also from a eco-centric point of view. You know, what are we doing for that water? If that water is doing something amazing for us, is there anything that we're doing for the water or the wildlife that we come across? So that'd be interesting in terms of kind of almost the last question. I've got one after that, which is a top tip that you might give somebody. But is there anything that you're doing? So either are there any amazing wildlife encounters that you've had in a wise way where you're not being disturbing the wildlife, of course, or anything that you advocate for in terms of your maybe giving back to the ocean in some way, shape or form? Is there anything that would be interesting to share with those listening to this interview around what your sense of symbiosis is with that space, I guess?
For me, I as a business, we promote things like Planet Patrol and stuff like that. So we actively do sort of like litter picks, and when we're paddling with groups and stuff like that, I either sort of take a bag and make sure that if there's waterways and there's litter and stuff being left, or on beaches and stuff, that and where I live, when I'm walking the dogs, I'm always picking up litter, that when I see it is not to walk past stuff like that. It's a very easy thing to do, and actually little things like that as a community, like a bigger effect. So for me, like being able to do that, and it's very easy on a paddleboard to get around into little bays and stuff where rubbish gets trapped, and just being able to help on the waterway is hugely important. And I think you always get that reward back, and yeah, plenty of sort of moments, seals sort of following boards and stuff like that, and they love sort of twirling behind your fins and things. So yeah, you always get that reward back, and I think being able to sort of help as much as you can, even if it's just a little thing that you think, oh, it doesn't matter if I just walk past it or paddle past it, but all those little things help, definitely.
I think it is if all of us can do something, it is the little things. If everybody does something rather than somebody doing everything. Well, I know the guys in the office at Red are keen to do some volunteering. So it may well be that they might be giving a shout about doing a paddle of plastic or something at some point. I expect. Go forward. What about you, Goran?
In a similar way, I think, like, it actually made me, I always knew it was an issue and had tried to reduce my plastic, but actually when you go around to some of these areas that you can't actually access by foot on a paddleboard and just see the amount of plastic that has been washed up, it really is like something that you want to shout about. And we go and do list picks with climate control and things like that for exactly that reason, because you do have like that privilege of being able to get to areas that you can't get to otherwise.
That's so much, doesn't it? It's everybody uses the Jacques Cousteau quote, people protect what they love, but the second part of it is you can't love what you don't know. You guys are people who really know this space because you spend a lot of time in it. So start with love rather than shame. So start with love.
No, I'm pretty much the same with that's the easy part, litter picking and pick up stuff and all that. And so I share this with both of you. It's an easy way to do.
So easy.
And then obviously when a little bit of safety as well. When I paddle, especially during the summer when there's a lot of people on the water, I sometimes paddle up to people and tell them, maybe put the leash on and maybe tell them there's a strong offshore wind. That's not for the environment, but it's safety wise. I try to teach people like to be careful if it's offshore wind or something like that, or if you're going to paddle, start paddle against the wind because it's going to be easy to get home. And that sort of stuff.
It's still compassion. It's an act of compassion and connection, it's a thread that goes through all of this Blue Health work. It's compassion and connection and community, I guess. So, okay. So my last question, because I'm aware that we've taken half an hour of your time today. Oh. My last, if you were going to give a nice top tip to somebody that you sense might enable them to really make the most of their paddling time, what would it be? What would be a secret that you could offer that would enable somebody to really get the most out of their Blue Health when it comes to spending time on their paddleboard?
I think mine would be around body image, and just go and paddle for you and don't worry about what anyone else is looking or thinking about the way you look. That's not, that shouldn't matter. Just do it for yourself and not worry about anyone else's thoughts about it.
Beautiful one. And the ocean and lakes are a very good remedy for waking up, like letting go of the ego, because they very quickly take the ego out of it. So yeah, lovely.
Oh, my top tip is get an inflatable board.
Okay.
Because it's so much easier. It's stronger. It's easier to take with you, and you get started. It's not going to lay in your garage for a while. It's just that's my tip. Just get an inflatable because it's so much easier.
Comes with you, yeah. It comes with you, which is great. Thank you.
I think for me, my top tip is always sort of leave the pride and the ego at home and just give it a go. Everyone's going to fall in, doesn't matter how good you think you are or how good you are. The water's soft and it does hold you. So and it's nice and refreshed. So yeah, just give it a go, even if you think you couldn't do it. And always, I think for me is making sure that finding like a SUP school or local experience to wherever you're going paddling, if it's on the ocean, especially with currents and offshore winds and things, and speak to people who sort of work in those environments and get that information, because like safety is huge for you, the enjoyment side of it. And yeah, as youth instructors, the only way you're going to get better is by sort of taking that knowledge from other people. It's knowledge they want to share. So don't be sort of too proud to ask for help and development.
Which is super cool. And all these stand-up paddle instructors that I've found have come from a real place of they're really passionate about paddling, and that's what's led to them instructing. So they do really want to share those skills. So stay safe, have a go, get in and on the water, get yourself at something that enables you to do that, such as a red paddleboard that will enable you to do that safely and also enable you to take that with you. So did Team Red have any other questions that you wanted to ask before we wrap it up? Because I found this conversation for you guys, what you shared, really inspiring, and really appreciate you taking the time to chat this afternoon around your blue health. What about you guys from Team Red? Did you have anything that you wanted to add or ask?
I don't think so. I think it's just really interesting. Obviously, Sarah and Stu and Goran come from quite different places with their paddling as well, and they're also different journeys. But I think it's interesting, kind of the commonality of it. But it's and also just how the physical and the, I guess, emotional and mental is so strongly tied. And I think that's potentially the unique thing of the paddleboarding, you know, whether it's, you know, if you're going for a dip just in the ocean, that's one thing, but actually I think the rhythmic nature and the physicality is so closely linked to the positive effects of the motion. I think it's really interesting to hear everybody bring that out. So, but no, yeah, it was great. Thank you. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was really, really interesting to hear your thoughts on it all. So thank you.
And anything from you, Rachel?
No, I thought it was brilliant. I completely agree with Charlie, how like the physical and the mental, it's just exactly the same, and how everyone's just from different backgrounds. It's just so interesting to hear all of your different views. Really, really interesting.
So I'm going to stop recording in a moment, but we're going to share this video on social media. If people have got questions they want to reach out to you, I'm guessing they can do that via the social media links in terms of comments. Is that probably the easiest way to connect questions for you guys? Thank you for saying. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed. I know it's like none of us enjoy being on Zoom as much as we enjoy being outside. So as much as you can enjoy a Zoom conversation, I hope you reflection fun for you to reflect on what the benefits are that you're gaining from your blue time. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. If I can press stop.